those who were involved in making it come to life. Join us as we go behind the door.
Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Door with the Grey Rooms podcast. Today we're talking about episode 10, The Honey of Revenge. With us today, we have the author, Scott Savino.
Hello, calling in from sunny Florida.
We also have Erin Lillis, who was the actor that played Aunt Lillis. Aunt Alice.
Aunt Lillis. Calling
Aunt
in from
Lillis, you
sunny
are-
Los Angeles.
You are Lillis.
Aunt Alice.
Aunt Alice.
It's okay.
And then our third person involved here is, of course, the producer extraordinaire, Jason Wilson.
What's up?
Hey, Jason.
Hello.
What up? And I'm rounding us out as the fourth.
From neither coast, just so we know.
From neither
From the
coast,
middle.
I'm right in the middle. I am on the West Coast. I am Brooks Bigley, and I am the social media and Patreon manager. So, Scott, this story, it was very fitting for the Grey Rooms because, we're all about tormenting and making people just feel like shit. And this story was just, very disturbing in all the best ways possible. Let me ask you right off the bat, like I always ask every author, what got you started on the story? What was the first seedling idea that you had for this story?
So what inspired me to write the story was I was listening to a podcast. I like to listen to informative, just to learn things, that kind of thing. So I don't remember what podcast it was, but they were interviewing a beekeeper. And all of the stuff that I included in the story about the colonies being moved all around the country is absolutely real. I might have embellished some of it because I did a lot of research, but sometimes you just want to make sure that it sounds a little bit worse than it is. But I remember while I was driving and listening to this, thinking to myself, what if the truck in front of me, what if that's one of the ones with the bees? And what if they crash?
Right.
They do move them all around the country to pollinate different things, avocados and almonds in California. They move them after that up to Washington for apple season. They move them all over the country, not just on the West Coast, but the East Coast too. And that's part of the problem.
Is this so the bees can eat different flowers, consume different pollen?
That's
to
part
create
of
different
it.
kinds of
That's
honey?
part of it. The big problem is they don't exist in these areas in the number that they need to create the food crop that we're consuming as people. So they are bringing in tens of thousands of bees to make sure that they can pollinate all of these different food crops. And the only way to do that is to bring them from somewhere else because those crops are not there year round. So they have no food source otherwise. And you have to think about it too. It's not like a place with there's a whole bunch of flowers and everything like that here. No, it's just almond. If they're pollinizing the almonds, it's just almond. That's also really bad for their diets. Because they have to have a diverse food source. So I started doing a lot of reading about colony collapse disorder, basically why it happens. A lot of it is because of malnutrition. A lot of it is because it's actually really susceptible to different diseases. And once a hive gets it, the whole hive gets it. And probably 20 to 30% of those bee colonies that are being moved throughout the country year round die. And I always thought it was really fascinating too. So I'm a Doctor Who fan. Every time that they brought up that there were no more bees, and I see bees all the time. So
you always hear that as a statistic. If the bees get killed or go away, the world is over.
They're still here. I see them all the time.
That's awesome. So you initially then were like, okay, I'm going to write a horror story about these bees, and you did all this research. Now, how did you then start to flesh out your character of Aaron, his interactions with Aunt Alice? How did you start to then set, everyone into their place and form the story as it is? How did you do that?
Well, I think I probably did start with the scenario on the highway. I don't know that I wrote that first, but I knew that was a big deal, because that was what triggered me into coming up with the idea. And then I was like, okay, so what is something that can happen to somebody that would bring them to the point where they're gonna do basically revenge and get us to the point. How do we get to the point where they're zombie bees that are taking the person over once the revenge has happened? Like, how does it blow up in his face? So I started thinking about some people that I know. I'm not going to name them or anything like that maybe didn't have the best upbringing and the type of situations that they live in and the way that they resent that. And I was like, this is the perfect catalyst for why a person would find themselves in the situation where they're like, I'm going to kill you with bees.
Yes. Absolutely. That's why the story is so disturbing. You weaponized bees in a way I didn't think possible.
Yeah, that was very interesting.
Yeah.
There's like so many different aspects of revenge in there too, because like she was also afraid of the holes. She had that fear. So then you got your hive hexagons, and you've got all the holes that filled her body.
And I tried to kind of put that in there too, that they were weirdly symmetrical. I didn't go in too much detail of that because it was supposed to be kind of like a little Easter egg. Like all the holes were in her body were bloodless and weirdly symmetrical, because that would be something that would really freak her out. She's dead. She can't react to it at this point. But, it's just kind of like bring something from the beginning back. So I added that in order to kind of, I like stories that do that you have something in the beginning, and it seems like a non sequitur, like it doesn't have anything to do with the rest of the story. And then, oh, wait a minute. I remember this. Like when you get to that, you're like, I remember this. This makes sense now.
You did that a couple of times, I noticed, because you also had the beginning where Aunt Alice speaks in the royal we, and then at the end, so is Erin.
That was on purpose too. Yeah.
That was a good nuance. I like that one.
And I had a friend that I played this for, and that part was a little bit confusing for him of what was happening, but only for a moment. He was like, "Oh God, the bees are in him. He's the bees." You know what I mean? And actually, after I had finished playing that for him, like 2 or 3 days later, he said, "Will you send me a link to that? Because I want to listen to it again."
Sweet. That's what I like to hear.
Right, exactly. I've listened to it 3 times myself. Because
Me too.
I kind of already said this to you on when we were initially getting started to sit down and talk. I unfortunately was unable to make the call yesterday when we originally planned it, so I'm really glad we're able to do it today. And I'm also super glad that Erin is here with us because I love you.
We've worked together briefly, as I think, we mentioned it before the call, but let's mention it on the call because we worked together on the Black Rainbow Anthology.
Yes. Dear Jane was the story that you submitted to that. It was an LGBTQ horror anthology that I put together through Kickstarter. And Erin submitted this story, and I put it in there. But also, you have narrated 2 of my aunts in the last... in the last month. I don't know when you actually record these things, but on the No Sleep podcast, what was that aunt's name? The psychic aunt.
Oh, fuck, I don't remember either.
What was the name of the story?
Carol, I want to say.
Is it Lorraine? No. It's something weird like that. No, but so, like, you're my aunt now. I didn't know if you knew that. Like, I'm probably about your same age, so you're my aunt.
Yeah, well, everybody calls me
I'm really
Aunt
happy
Erin,
that Aunt Erin is on the phone with us right now because I was super stoked that you were going to be on this call because I absolutely love your work, and I got to hear you read 2 of my things. That's such an honor to me, and it's so, like, mind-blowing. I got to hear you narrate 2 of my aunts.
That's really
the
fun.
Aunt Alice from this story and Aunt Alice, or no, the other aunt. I don't remember what her name is. Doesn't matter. But another aunt and another story. Whoa, it's so great. Sorry,
it was kind of funny.
The whole train.
When you mentioned recording, because I think did I record this in like January?
Yeah, it was a
while ago, and then the other day Brooks mentioned like, "Hey, you're in the latest episode and you die wonderfully." I'm like, I don't even remember what you're talking about. What have I recorded recently? I was just like, I nodded my head, I was like, yes, I did. I had no idea what you're talking about.
I've died many times. Yes.
And for some reason, both of the characters were aunts. One was a good aunt.
That's just too funny.
Not a good aunt.
That's just Scott,
too funny. Your story was called Peepers, season 14, episode 10 on No Sleep. And Erin, you played Darlene.
Darlene,
Yes.
not Lorraine, Darlene. Thank you.
I feel like that's the second story named Peepers I was in, too. There was a Christmas
I think
one.
Olivia wrote something called Peepers at one, because I feel like, because I talked to her about it. She said, oh, I wrote a story called that. No, I sent this to you a year ago.
Well, it's funny is sitting here listening to Scott describe the story and the phobias. I just found it just a little side nugget that I just found out today. I listened to a lot of these other podcasts, like medical stuff. And did you know that when a human is born, they're literally only have phobias to two things? It's falling and loud noises. Everything else is learned.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's it. So interesting.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, me either.
That's going to be part of some story that I write, because I love taking little tidbits like that and adding it into my brain.
That's my kind of horror right there.
The other thing that didn't bother me, I should say, but I've been I had a story idea for bees, brewing in my head for a couple of years now, and I haven't been able to figure out anything but the title. And then you wrote a nice story. I'm like, well, no, I can't write anything about bees because it's already been done and it's been done well. Basically the same thing, except for not, because I hadn't come up with anything.
Nice. And I know people are afraid of them. Bees don't bother you. I literally, I love bees. I will walk right up to them while they're pollinating something and start taking pictures. And they will leave you alone as long as they're not Africanized, which are super aggressive, but you'll know because they're bigger. And no, as long as you're chill, because they read your human pheromones, as long as you're chill and they know you're not there to hurt them, they'll let you get super close.
Well, did the release of this story coincide at all with the news about the murder hornets, or was that just a happy accident?
That is
I think that was a happy accident.
That's a real animal.
Very happy accident.
That's a real animal.
Oh yeah, the murder hornets. Yeah. This
called
started coming out a few weeks
hornet?
ago, actually.
Yep.
That is.
You don't know about this?
No, I'm a fan. I am automatically a fan. Where's the shirt? Is this a band?
They are starting on the West Coast right now. They haven't found where the colonies
they're in Washington.
are. Yeah, in Washington. Thank you. But they haven't found where the colonies exactly are. But these are from Asia, and what they have been doing is biting the heads off of entire hives of bees.
Oh my God!
They swoop down onto, and these are curated hives. These are beekeepers' hives. They swoop down onto the little landing pad that is on the box for the bees, and they pick up a bee and carry it away and bite off its head. And then they bring that back to their larva. And they've been searching for these murder hornets, trying to figure out where the heck they are, because that could be really bad for our bee population here. But also because they are so poisonous that if you get attacked by more than a few of them, you could die.
Man.
I was just watching a video of some guy getting stung on purpose. He put it on his arm, got stung on purpose just to react and film that.
Oh my God.
He was screaming.
Oh yeah,
YouTube
YouTube has got a bunch of people doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
my son watches some guy who does that, and I really question his mental fortitude. I truly do.
Sometimes I watch people do things on YouTube, and I'm like, what is wrong with you? What motivated you to record this and share it with the world? Because you look so stupid right now.
Money.
You're one or two
cool
hugs
factor,
shy.
Yeah. Now back to the story. Another. I don't know if you want to call it a theme, but the setting of the house being a hoarder house, and just the beautiful, beautiful way in which that type of environment became, quote, a hive itself to Erin and his aunt in the end of the story. How did you settle kind of on that being, I don't know, the scene, the setting? I'm not quite sure what to call that. Do you know what I mean?
think that was probably something that kind of happened organically, because like I said, I was looking for a scenario where someone would be like, this is cause for murder. You're a horrible person. And like I said, I have friends that grew up in situations that were not so great. And I have been to their houses, and it's just like, oh my God. I'm not judging anybody who's listening that, maybe struggling with that for sure. But it's just like, it's baffling to me because I am an OCD neat freak that, people, and we've all seen hoarders, but like that people make little paths through their house to get to things. And the weirdest thing to me is when they're looking for a specific thing, they know what pile it's in.
Yeah.
How? I don't even know where my keys are right now. How do you do that? It's crazy.
Well, I can tell you one thing I love about the show Hoarders is that it makes me clean the heck out of my house.
Do you know, I think we were probably because I was writing this on the couch with my partner. I think we were probably watching that at the time. And because like we went through a stretch where we were watching Hoarders every single day. And my 600-pound life, that's another one that's really depressing.
Yeah, my wife watches that.
Watch that too, yeah.
I don't know. I hate that one because I'm just like, this is making me sad. Why are we watching this?
I think that's the whole point, is it makes you feel better about your life.
No, I don't feel better about my life. I want to help them. And I obviously can't because I'm not a doctor.
Yeah.
But no, and that actually coincides with the other idea too, that people end up becoming things down the line based on things that happen to them, traumas that happen to them throughout their life. So like I wrote in the story, he didn't realize, I swear I didn't realize why I was doing this. Of course he realized it's denial. Of course he realized that's why he decided he wanted to raise bees, because he knew it would kill her. But also maybe he didn't realize that. Maybe it was just something that interested him because it was something that for a brief moment gave him a lot of joy. And then that was snatched away when she lived after the first encounter with the bees from the shed.
Right.
So maybe that's what he was seeking. But really, honestly, I wrote it. I'm telling you, he knew what he was doing, and it was all about revenge.
There's a lot of layers in this story.
And I really like
there's a lot of layers.
Gory details in the end. Like there's that moment at the end where it could be the end where, and then she died, and that's where it could end, and that could be perfect. But then you go on for like another chapter of the zombification, which is a whole nother realm, and now she's still a villain, but she's a different kind of villain, and now he's the villain, and they're both just chomping off heads of flowers and pooping it into the wall and making weird honey. I don't know.
Honey, yeah.
And poop. No, you didn't think of it that way.
Excuse me. You know what? This story was not as detailed until I sent it in, and you guys were really great, and we're like, we would like to see more scary from the ant, and I was like, I can do that. And so I literally wrote in like that whole scene of her coming out of the grave, eating the flowers, him not realizing exactly what he was seeing until, oh wait, that is Aunt Alice, and she is not dead, but she is dead. It's the hive. The hive is controlling her. He was lucky enough that he didn't die, but they did take him over. No, but
yeah, they were like in his head and stuff, right?
Yeah, a lot of the more grotesque things that were added to the story after the fact is because, the two of you asked me if I could do something to make it a little bit more punchy. And I am all about that.
Sweet.
I turned it up to 11.
I love being critiqued, and I love having people tell me, like, I think this would be better with this, because I'm capable of doing a lot of that stuff. Why not? Let's do it.
Yeah.
It ended up being a really good story. Loved it.
I liked the detail of the hanging jaw.
And that was the thing that was one of the things that I added that was not in the original story that I sent in. And I was like, okay, you want it to be gross? Let's make it gross. She's going to hit herself in the face with a 2x4 until she has a broken jaw that's just like not even on there anymore. And when she tries to eat these flowers, they're just going to fall right out of her mouth.
But, and the beauty of it all.
What is it? Visceral visual. There you go.
Yeah. And the beauty of it all is that it was not torture porn. It was not, I said grossed out only because of the emotional, to me, it was very emotionally gross. His relationship with his aunt, his desire for revenge, the state in which they lived in the house, the way in which he went back. Like you said, he he says out loud, I don't, know what I was doing, but you're right. Like, I just get the feeling that of course he knew what he was doing. This was all brewing inside internally.
And he spent so much time focusing on that afterwards.
Right.
Like, you get out of high school early, you get your degree as quick as possible, and then you start following this woman, who you are idolizing, Dr. Abea. And actually, that's another little, anybody who speaks French is going to obviously see right through that. But that was another little Easter egg. That means bee in French. But no,
but I did not know that.
No, like his fascination with her is, I wanted to include that, but like I read so much and I hear so many stories, and after a while you get really tired of people sexualizing other people in stories, and I've never been one to do that. And so as you listen to the story, it seems like he might be doing that. But if you listen to exactly the way that I wrote it, he's not talking about her breasts. He's not talking about her figure. He's talking about the way she commands a room. And part of that is because almost every story that I write, the main character is LGBT, and it's about representation. And actually, I'm not really sure that Erin was gay. I think he might have been more asexual, just because of his, and that's part of the community too, LGBTQIA. But it was more about his motivation. And a lot of times I do plug those things into the stories because I feel like it's important to have that representation for whoever's reading it. Because you don't know who's reading it or listening to it. You don't know who you're going to help by, normalizing a different lifestyle than maybe their parents want, or the world has been telling them that they should be living. Like, you should be yourself. And for this guy, his number one thing was not any kind of motivation except for killing his aunt. But when I wrote the character, I knew he was either gay or just not interested in sex at all. So when you go through his descriptions of Dr. Abea, it's about how she commands a room. It's about her voice. I think he might have said that she was beautiful at some point, but gay people think Beyonce is beautiful, and she's the queen bee. Okay,
right.
So
queen bee.
That's the
Bringing
queen
it back.
bee. That is the queen bee. So, like, it was very important to me to not have it be like a thing where he was sexually attracted to her, but we as a community are very much attracted to the divas, the Lady Gagas, the Beyonce, Cher, and it's not because of necessarily their sexuality. Well, it is because of their sexuality, but it's not because we're sexually attracted to them as gay people. It's because they're powerful. And to Erin, having Dr. Abea as a mentor, she's a figure of power. And that was kind of like why he idolized her. And, re-listening to it and reading it, I'm like, this is crazy. They told them to get rid of the bees. We know these bees are dangerous. Why are they taking them into the woods? Why?
Yeah.
And obviously, like, there was something in his head that I feel like she planted there that was like, no, these are our art. This is our, what is Beyonce's latest song? I don't even know. I could think of it right now, but I'm drawing a blank. But you know what I memean? Like, you don't throw your art away. This is their art. Right. So that's why they were so averse to getting rid of it. And I did mention that in there. It's their magnum opus. It's what if Leonardo burned the Mona Lisa? Like, you can't do that. That's what they've been striving for. They're trying to build this really resilient hive that can stand up to the Africanized bees that are killing them, and also be able to be moved throughout the country and not die. And like I said, that is a very severe problem. And the people that do this, they know it. But also, bees reproduce. So they may lose 20% of their hive every year, but that comes back because they will have more hives. So it's not like a big, huge issue. Colony collapse disorder, it is an issue, but it's not. I don't know how I just ended up on this tangent. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
No, but like, this is their art. This is something that they're trying to create that's going to make the world better in their minds. So they can't destroy it. And for Erin, the number one thing that he could do is, I know that these are really poisonous, they're really big, and they're really nasty. I'm gonna go put them in my aunt's house because she's a bitch.
Now let's talk about the other Erin now. Let's talk about Erin Lillis here, who plays Aunt Alice. Like how did you go about? You must have loved this character, by the way, because I feel like you've done some similar kind of nasty people before. I think you personally get off on these characters.
Sure. I love being a villain in general, and this was like probably one of the more realistic villains of like, you know, just someone that clearly had a mental issue. Something was wrong with her that was untreated, and you know, so maybe suggests some trauma in her own life. So she's very grounded in her villainy, and also delusional because she's, you know, seeing things that aren't there. She's a cutter. She's self-harming. She's harming others. So she's a villain. So I just went with like a normal sort of voice that could switch on a dime, is what I was thinking.
One I absolutely loved, especially the drunk slurring at the breakfast table in that scene. That was great because I forgot. I was like, why is she talking like that? Because I mentioned after the fact that she was drunk. So I'm listening to it. I'm like, why is she talking like that? Oh, wait a minute. She's drunk. And, you know, honestly, like, I am also a huge mental health advocate. If you need to get help, go get it. But also, there is a string of, in my family, of, well, string, I don't think that's right. I have a couple people in my family. My mom has 9 brothers and sisters. And we always make this joke that they're a C, because 3 of them are fucking crazy. So 70% of them are fine. So their family gets a C. And the 3 that are crazy are well, they're not to that extreme, but it's like you could tell them that they're crazy, but they're not ever going to get help because they don't recognize that they have a problem. And I feel like that is so important, especially with how normalized mental health issues have become in our society, in our world. Like if you have a problem, especially if somebody else tells you have a problem, maybe you should explore that. Maybe you should, and the biggest issue is, though, a lot of these people that do have these problems, they don't get treated because they don't have someone to support them to tell them, hey, you're fucked up. Go get on meds.
Well, I know that Erin said that she really enjoyed this character. I have to tell you, as somebody who's personally met Erin. Hi, Erin.
Hi.
Been a while. Been a minute. Absolutely.
I think you might be the last person I saw before quarantine.
Oh my God.
That's right. It was the weekend of.
Yeah. By the way, if you ever get a chance to go to any of these events that Erin is part of, you need to. Erin's a wonderful human being. It's such a great. We still talk about that, Erin. So,
well,
you like playing the villains, but you're a wonderful person. So yeah.
That right after you left. So, filling in, I met Jason at a ghost event, a paranormal event. We hung around with him and his wife, and we did some ghost investigation. And then after Jason left, we did a whole other thing where I got possessed by a demon.
Yeah. Go figure. I mean, I was half dead when we left there. Anyways, I was falling asleep. Old man of me was coming out. I was like, it's 9:30. I got to go to bed. It was a bit later than that, but so anyway, so I just want to throw that in there. Erin's awesome. Love Erin.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes.
Well, I literally have been fangirling since we got on the phone. Literally fangirling because I have always loved your work, and I think that you have such a great range of being able to play different characters.
Yep,
you're talented. I mean, like, I published one of your stories in my book because it was good and I wanted it in there. But also, like, at the same time, like, it's so nice to know that there are that we're not the only ones here. You know what I mean? Like, as far as the LGBTQIA community goes, like, we are very underrepresented. We're very
it works for me. I got you.
We're underrepresented in horror.
We're squarey. That's
we're here. We're scary. We're queer. But no, like there's a it's a marginalized faction of horror. I can't tell you how many times I've written something and posted it online and been chastised because, oh, you just added that in there so people would, no, I added the gay character in there because I'm gay. Fuck you. Mind your own business. Like, you don't need to know that until I tell you. If it's the last sentence in the story, then that's where it goes. And I don't do it unless I feel the need to. But I also feel the need that we need to have some representation. So, like, sometimes people do kind of give me a hard time with my writing when I do plug something in, just kind of as a brief thing, especially if it's near the end. But, like, you didn't need to know that about this character because he's a regular person.
Right.
I'll plug again. So let's plug our book again, Black Rainbow, Gay Anthology Horror.
Copy that.
Yes, Black Rainbow, Volume 1. Maybe there will be a Volume 2, I hope.
Yeah.
If I can get my life together a little bit. But
and
no,
just
like,
for the record there, too, the Grey Rooms podcast is definitely an ally. So everybody needs to understand that out there. So.
Well, and honestly, like, that's what I've loved about all of the different not just you guys are awesome, but like all of the podcasts that I've had do my work, which there's a number of them, and I'm not going to go through the list because that's very self-indulgent, but like everybody's been like, we're going to do this, we like it, and nobody was like, hey, can you change this? Because I wouldn't have. And the problem that I have is the people that are like, oh, this is too gay. Fuck you, I'm too gay. But also I go
here.
I know, I go grocery shopping, I walk my dog, I ride my bike, I do all the things that everybody else does. This is just part of who I am, and if you don't like it, that's your problem. That's not my problem.
Well, I don't ride a bike, but
I don't
everything else I do.
But you know what I'm saying? Like
I got you.
Everybody is a regular person, and I can include that, or anybody else can include that in a story. And it doesn't have to be like pandering, and it doesn't have to be, oh, you're just writing this for gay people. No, it's for everybody. It's for everybody. And if you have a problem with it, you're the one with the problem, not me.
Right. And if like there's a character that's a gay man and he just references and says, I need to call my husband on the phone, and that's in the story, that doesn't mean that there's an agenda. No one is pushing gay on
that makes me crazy.
But no one complains when it's a man that says, oh, I got to call my wife on the phone. No one says, oh, how dare you only...
And I don't complain
how dare you push
either.
the straight agenda on me? No one says that, so therefore you shouldn't go the other way.
I've never complained about that, and I doubt Erin has complained about that. Like, that's just part of the world.
I've written so many letters.
It takes it takes so many people to make a world. Right, and really, honestly, like, that's such a corny thing to say, but it's so true. We're all here just trying to do the best, be the best people that we can be for the most part. Some people are not, but I don't. I imagine they don't exist. Because I actually don't believe in evil. I think a lot of people that have been marked as evil are mostly mentally ill, and that's not necessarily their fault. They should get help for it. And but yeah, like it takes all kinds of people to make the world. And
which brings us back to Evil Aunt Alice.
Yep, great point.
Who I think should get her own spin-off.
Yes.
Well, so I guess she'll have to figure out how to get out of the house that was on fire.
I was gonna say, is this pre or post B?
It should probably be a prequel.
yeah, it's got to be a prequel. We want to hear about the human Aunt Alice, because now she's a bee. She doesn't really say we anymore. She goes bzzz. Yeah. So I want to hear about
this.
the young before she's an Aunt Alice.
Before she's an aunt.
Yeah, who is she? That's a good idea to explore. I love taking characters that I've already used and reusing them. I have written so many different stories centered on this made-up town that I think this story took place in. It might have. But no, it's a place I made up in Kentucky. I live in Sarasota, which is very close to Bradenton. It is very much a nice area until you get to the part that's not a nice area. And then you feel like you're in Kentucky. So the inside joke for everyone that lives here is that it's Bradentucky. So I made up a town called Bradenville in Kentucky. And a lot of my stories do take place there. And no, it's just, I I forgot where I was going with this. My ADD is so bad today.
It's okay. Erin, I want to ask you more questions too. Did you read the story fully through? I guess you would have, because it was a main character, right? Versus maybe just reading your own parts, or like, what did you do to prepare to be Evil Aunt Alice?
So usually what I'll do is I'll scan for my highlights and not read the whole story so that I still have some surprise when I listen to it. But I have learned to read the paragraphs that are before and after to see if there's anything like more than once I've recorded something in the wrong accent. And then oh, she's from, okay, got to start that over. So I read enough to know where it was going. And most of the time, just like on a technical note, I'll read to know what order I need to record in. So for example, I just did a recording before this call. I did a series, I go into my sound closet with a dashboard full of orders that I have to get to. And if one of them includes screaming or grunts, that's the last one. So I will, that in this case, there was a lot of screaming and grunting and choking on bees. So this was the last thing I recorded that day. I can guarantee you that.
Thank you for doing that. I always love when you do the Foley. Your range is ridiculous. And I think I've reached out to you before. I actually have. I can't remember which story it was, but you had done some Foley work at the end. And I was sitting there and I was in cringe factor listening to it. And I remember sending a message to like, geez, how does your throat feel after that or something? It's like, yeah, I remember. But yeah, I love it. I always love getting Erin's audio. I will never stop loving having Erin involved ever.
I think I gave you one where I know there's been like several where I was being choked to death.
Yeah.
Or in this one, choking on my own bee tongue. And I know I did re-listen to the audio because I had like a section where I'm like, and now I will do anaphylaxis tongue. And it was all just a series of me holding my tongue in the closet.
That's right. Yes.
And that was such an important scene, I think, in the story, especially for audio too. Because, reading the story, like Erin, you said there was like a pause where you thought like, and the story's done, but then it continues. When you hear it in audio format, you can definitely hear that break. But the scene where you're dying, the anaphylactic shock, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's no music from JM during that part. It's just a steady humming of buzzing. And then there's Mark as Erin. So I'll just say there's Erin narrating as the character, Mark Whitten saying it, not Erin Lillis. And then there's you dying, Erin. How did you... That was all you, right? That was all your Foley? That was you doing all the sound? How did you do that?
I believe it was all me, unless there's something else thrown in. As I was listening to it, I was regretting that I didn't do more staccato thumps of my face for the brain bashing part.
Right. Yeah, that was such an
damn it, I could have given more
part of the story.
But just know, I love as much as possible. Foley away. Let's just do it.
Yes.
I will say the part that I back to what I started with the jackknife truck on the highway. I was playing this for my friend Pedro in the car, and I had a mini panic attack where we almost crashed because I happened to see in the reflection of my windshield there is a wasp stuck in the air vent of like the windshield air vent. It's dead. Mm-hmm. I still haven't gotten it out of my car because this was like 2 days ago. But in the middle of us listening to that, talking about it coming through the vents, I happened to notice it and I was like, oh my God. And then he was like, what? And I'm like, there's a wasp. It's right there. And he was like, don't worry, it's dead. I have no idea how it got there.
You scared yourself, man.
I have no idea how it got there. But no, all of the sound design on this was so incredible. And even the parts of the story that I did not write in the beginning part of it, because my friend Pedro that I played this for, he's never listened to the show before. And I'm like, you will love this. Listen to this one because I wrote it because you're here sitting here in my car with me.
That's fair enough. That's fair.
Right. But then go back and start from the beginning. And I have always loved this show. Really just the idea of having so many different authors send you their idea and then you are intertwining it all with this larger storyline. Not to Well, no, it's fine. My favorite show of all time is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And you have like in every season of Buffy, there's 22 to 24 episodes. And there's something that goes into the main storyline in each episode, even if you have the throwaway monster of the week. And I have always loved that way of storytelling where you can tell an individual story that I don't have to know exactly what's going on for this whole story. But if I listen to the whole thing, there's another layer. And that to me is the most incredible thing about this podcast, because I mean, there's so many horror podcasts and everybody's got a YouTube channel and nobody's tying things together the way you guys are. And it's incredible to just be able to be like part of it. And also like, I hope that there's a finale like there was last year and that we get all of the little villains and the bees and everything at the end for Samantha. I'm really looking forward to it.
Welcome to my nightmare, by the way. Well, just
I'm
wait.
really looking
the finale
forward
is a
to hearing
doozy.
what you
I can tell you
guys
that.
do.
We have a beast of a finale coming out.
Yeah, this finale is this finale is it's thick, it's fat, it's heavy, and it's really, really bold.
It's going to answer a lot of questions too.
The finale of the first season was my favorite episode because I was like, I remember that episode. Obviously, I remember all the episodes because I listened to every single one of them. But no, like I was like, this is great. Everything's getting all tied back in together. So I can't wait to hear what you guys do with that.
Rock and roll, yeah, it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that mean Ann Ellis will be back? No problem.
Wait, what'd you say? Ann
Ellis will be back?
Oh, Ann Ellis can come back anytime. Come on.
She's just a lumbering, be powered oaf.
I'll write it. Hey, if they don't, I'll write another aunt. I'll figure out which podcast to send it to, and you can be my aunt again.
Go ask Aunt Ellis.
That's funny.
That would be awesome.
Just as a side note, I think it's funny. My little nephew named his Roomba after me.
That is so funny.
So he named it in the app Auntie Erin. So whenever he gets mad at it for being too loud, Auntie Erin has to go back to the dock.
Nothing to do about this. Nothing to do about this podcast.
Awesome.
I have 2 of those, and they get stuck on my carpets all the time, and I never know which one it is to yell at it to go back to the station. So I actually, and I'm like, come on, you bitch, get off my carpet. I actually named them both today.
I saw that on your Instagram.
One is Regina George, and the other one is Heather
Chandler.
Yes, Heather Chandler. Because I was like, who are the 2 biggest bitches I can think of? Oh, I know. These 2 women from these awful movies.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that. My I don't have one, but my parents have 2 as well, and they're always yelling at the one or the other.
It's a
they
thing
hear
you
one
do.
stuck. And they hear one stuck, and they're always like, God, what is that? And then it's like, oh, it's the one downstairs. And then they go yell at that one. Yeah, I get you.
One, it's like, which one is it that's stuck? So I just gave them names. One is Heather, and one is Regina. And now I can yell at them and with their first proper names.
That's funny. That's funny.
Oh my goodness! Wow. Before we're on Roombas now. Before we close out this amazing conversation, I wanted to find out like kind of what some projects that you guys are working on. If there's anything that anyone wants to push, before we close out here tonight. Scott, do you have any future novels you're working on, or any other podcasts you're working on, or anything?
I mean, like I'm going through some life changes now. I ended a career with this whole COVID thing. Currently, I am going to be in the next week or 2 updating my website. I do book covers. I'm a graphic designer. I'm going to actually be going back to school for that. So if anybody that's listening is an author, I am relatively inexpensive and easy to work with because especially people that are self-publishing, a lot of times they charge way too, these graphic designers charge way too much, and I actually enjoy it. So that's going to be something I'm going to be adding to my website. I also am a fantastic editor, and I'm adding that to my website, but I'm still writing. I have just been published in I have 2 stories coming out, and it's a series called Scary Snippets, and this is the family edition. So the rules for those books are every story has to be less than 1,000 words. And I have 2 stories in one of those. And I have another book coming out, and I can't remember what it is. But no, hey, just go on Amazon, look for my name.
Well, we're gonna include links for you. We're gonna plug
definitely.
you in the show notes for this episode.
Look for Black Rainbow.
I'll bug you after.
I honestly did not make a penny off of that because there was so much concern for me to be able to pay everyone market rates, which doesn't happen a lot of times with authors. And especially a book like that, people are like, oh, we're going to put this together for royalties, which is fine for me most of the time. But if the book doesn't sell, then no one gets paid. And I really wanted everyone to get paid, which is why I did the Kickstarter. So every author that wrote a story for that book got paid. I did not. All of the work that I did was a passion project. I did the cover. I did not edit it myself. I had another community member edit it for me because it was very important for me to make sure that this was all very LGBTQIA driven. And, if you are a person out there listening who maybe feels alone, feels like you're not right in the head, especially young people, because we were very careful about what stories we picked. There are no revenge stories. It is not centered around the horror of being LGBT, because there is no horror, except for, you do have to be like a little bit cautious and aware of your surroundings. Yes, but there's no horror or nothing to be afraid of to be queer. And the main thing for me when we were putting that book together is that the book should reflect that. And it's basically just horror stories that involve gay characters, and they're all normal people. And I felt like that was really important to put together for visibility and for, like I said, anybody. It's probably like a young adult reader, but adults can read it and enjoy it too. It was for everybody, but I wanted to make sure that it was something that some kid could find, and maybe they're not having the best life. I don't know what Erin went through, but I went through a lot as a kid, and it's important because we didn't have that growing up, and I helped all these other people have a voice and help to create that, and that was so impactful for me. And the audiobook is coming soon. I am going to be putting that together very, very soon. So it's all been narrated. I just have to put it together. But do look for me on Amazon, Scott Savino, scottsavino.com, and also just type in Black Rainbow. It'll come up. There's a couple books with similar names, but you'll know which one it is.
Rock and
it's
roll.
The one with the rainbow.
Check that
out. I'll put the very specific link in the show notes. So we'll
right.
Scott, you and I will talk later about making sure that we include all the information possible. Where to find your books.
I appreciate that so much. It's not, and really honestly, I do this for a hobby. I love being able to share my stories with people. I haven't ever really made very much money from doing this. It's a passion. And that was why when we put that book together, I was like, I'm going to pay everybody else before I pay myself. And when everything was done, there was no money to pay me. And I was fine with that because it could help somebody. And that's kind of like my driving force in life, to be a positive impact and to be able to help people. So even though I write really, really graphic, awful shit.
You're doing a good service. You're just doing it through horror. There's nothing wrong with that.
You definitely are. That was a great story, and yes, for sure.
Well, I thank you guys very much for choosing it and for the compliments, and I thank Erin for being my aunt again.
You're welcome, nephew, son.
Son. And Erin, do you have anything that you want to share that you're working on? Anything you want to bring some light to?
Sure. I was just trying to think of the last time I had a whole list of things to tell you. This time I can't think of anything. But I'll just mention one. I've been working on it because if I mention it, maybe it'll make it real. I've been working on my own podcast called Stay Weird, which is just me having conversations that are kind of weird with people that I know about weird shit. And I bring it up now because one of the things that I am going to talk about on those episodes, and I've already recorded them, I just haven't edited or put any kind of trailer together, is that event that I talked about that I went with Jason, and what happened to me after Jason left, and who witnessed it, and what happened afterwards, and what to do next.
Yeah, man. See, that's
awesome.
Story of my life. Story of my life.
Yeah, story of my life. Wait, so this is not out yet, Erin?
It is
you're
not
working
out
on getting
yet.
it prepared.
I have
Okay.
my show art. I have several episodes recorded, but I have not edited any. It was going to be my quarantine project, and I just can't find the time every day. I'm like very busy.
What
during
is that?
quarantine.
I completely understand with
Yeah.
like what you're saying. I'm like, I'm gonna write every day. I'm like, I'm gonna write, and then I just listen to music and play video games instead.
I mean, I wish I had
Like,
time to do
I
that.
have all
But
this
you know, what,
time.
as a voice actor, I'm actually getting a lot more work right now for everybody's announcements about COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
So
that's a
it's
good thing, though. I mean,
It's
you're
kind
busy.
of haunting me, but it's also it's work that needs to be done, and I don't
Well, and
mind
you're
doing
doing
it.
a good thing too.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people, especially like we're about to reopen everything. That's freaking crazy.
That is
the-
not okay with me.
No, I'm not okay with it either.
Yeah.
The Spanish flu killed twice as many people in the second round. So, I mean, like, I hope everybody's just staying safe. You know, I don't care
If you're
there's a
listening to
rule
this,
wear your
please, wash your hands, wear your face mask.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if the store has a rule that you have to wear a face. Just get one. You can get one. It was hard in the beginning, and now they're available. So get
Yes,
one.
everybody's making them.
Keep yourself safe. And more importantly, the face masks don't necessarily keep you safe, but if you have it and you don't know it, you prevent yourself from spreading it, and that is
Right.
why those are important.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But no, you're
This is
doing
how
a
we
great
stay
thing.
safe
Talk
today.
to people about the COVID. Do your
Yeah,
About
announcements.
COVID, yeah.
I would rather hear it in your voice
Your
anyways, Erin.
personal Lord and not Savior COVID.
He's
Funny.
Well, lady
Oh.
and gentlemen, thank you for everyone being here tonight.
Thank you for putting it together.
Of course.
Hey, thank you. Yes, I love all of you, and I appreciate you. And sorry for all my rambling. That's just what happens when you have ADHD.
I
It's
have the
okay.
same, so it's also
And-
called
and White
GADD
Claw.
when you are us.
There you go. You're also an excited author, Scott, so you get a free pass. Don't worry about it.
Well, yeah, this is probably the first recorded interview I've done. I've done some other interviews where it's just like type your answers back. So I was really excited to do this. So I
Awesome.
appreciate you guys.
Oh, definitely, absolutely, and you're part of our canon now, so you're not gonna go
There you
anywhere.
go.
so-
Yes.
That's it right
So
there.
you are-
Yes. I'm gonna write
You are
something
now
else for you. I
official.
don't know what it is yet, but it's
Please
gonna
do.
be awful in the best
awfully
best
disturbing in
way.
a good way. Sweet, excellent.
I just wanted to take a quick moment to also give a real big shining light to some of the people who don't necessarily get a ton of the light at all times in these things and everything. But J.M. Scherf's music always brings a lot of the soul out of every story. If you like the Foley, you like the sound work, that's great. Pull J.M.'s music out is a totally different experience. So J.M. needs to be put on a pedestal. He's an absolute musical genius. And then
Mhm.
Cassie, her artwork is always through the roof. And
Stunning.
she seems to
Oh,
know
yeah.
how to grab a story right by the most important elements and just drag that out, shove it in your face, make you feel very uncomfortable, but also at the same
Mhm.
time make you say, man, that's really pretty. Why is that pretty? But yeah, Cassie does a great job. So Brooks always does a phenomenal job. Brooks is just wonderful to work with. I love having her on the team.
Brooks
Graham,
is a damn gem.
oh yeah,
Oh,
Brooks
thank
is
you.
Brooks is great, man. I love the heck out of Brooks. Hale, I haven't talked to Hale in a while, but that's just because of the whole quarantine stuff. Everything. Love Halen and Graham. You know, we can't leave Graham out. Good
No,
old
definitely
Mr.
not.
Graham Rowett. He is part of the glue that keeps a lot of this together. So we got to give.
And
big
I
shout out
love
to the
him
team.
too. I can't wait to write something that he ends up reading.
Oh,
I
Graham's
just got him
phenomenal.
pulled into, speaking of plugs, I totally forgot this one, but I just got him pulled into another podcast I'm in called Mandible Judy, which is a fun off-kilter horror in kind of in the vein of Twin Peaks.
That sounds so familiar. Who was writing that?
He'll be perfect. He'll be perfect for that. So and
Mandible
also,
Judy, I tried to get
sorry
them to hire
for-
you, Brooks. Yeah.
Sorry for backtracking for a minute, but because you mentioned the music in this episode is incredible. I'm a Patreon, and I have been since the very beginning before
yes,
the first
thank you for
episode
that. We
even
love
came
you
out.
very much.
Well, and
Seriously.
I'm not doing that to brag. If you're not, well, if you're listening to this, I guess you are. But no, I was super stoked when I saw that you released the music by itself. That's my new writing
Mhm.
music for right now.
There you
but no,
go.
it's
That's
incredible.
awesome.
But
your
yeah,
personal
tell your
soundtrack.
friends that are not Patreons of this show that they need to be, because there's so much extra stuff that you're missing out on.
No, thank you for that.
Please
Appreciate
do.
it.
Yes,
And speaking of extra stuff, we need to mention the new guy. Michael Zanke is part of this team as well. So he's actually doing a lot of the writing. We're actually doing all the writing for the end of the season stuff and everything. So
The narrative,
stay tuned
yeah.
for that, man. Michael's the stuff. I can just tell you. We'll go into more detail about Mr. Zanke and his accolades a little bit later in this year. But thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Erin, you know I love the heck out of you, Erin. Me and Chrissy still talk about the experience we had down there in Atchison.
That's rad.
Thank you. And then Scott, your wonderful story. Thank you again for your support on Patreon, but also thank you for the story, because that really helps us put stuff out there for everybody to experience your imagination and your thoughts, your creative process, and the podcast. And just thanks to everybody. It's just been an absolute blast. I love the community.
Oh,
and
my
I
God.
love everybody.
No, we love
Thank
you too. And honestly, like I said, I've been a supporter since before the first episode came out, and there was a reason for that. I listened to the preview episode and I said, this is going to be incredible. And I jumped on it right away because I had to be part of it. And I'm so excited to be able to have written something that you guys were able to use. And I'm going to go home right now because I'm walking around in the dark, and I'm going to write something really spooky and send it off to you.
Do it.
Next time you guys
Please.
open up your submissions.
Absolutely.
Sounds good to us. We love it. We're ready for it.
Excellent. Awesome. All right, everyone. Well, enjoy whatever trouble may come for the rest of the night. And wash your hands. And when COVID knocks at the door, just tell them you're not home.
Yeah, I'm about ready to.
Yeah, turn off
ready
the
to
lights,
follow
pretend you're
Scott.
home, hide behind your couch.
Yeah.
I'm about ready to walk down the same road as Scott here. Once I get done here, I'm going to go crack open some adult beverages and high five myself.
That's the trouble I was speaking about. All right, then. You go do that. Go enjoy. All right, y'all. Take care and enjoy the night.
Goodbye.
Hey, thank you guys.
See you. Thank you.
Bye.
Join us each week after every episode for another edition of Behind